For centuries, dealing with mental illness was done in a very inhumane way. You can't blame the doctors back then completely. They didn't know. In a way, it was even comical that they thought that they could measure someone's head and say, "Yep, this person is an arsonist," or something. Hell, they used to think that staring at the moon would make people insane. Luna is another name for moon. And now you know where the word lunatic comes from. What isn't funny about this is that they thought the cure for schizophrenia was ice baths. Mothers who were grieving for the death of their babies had to have electric shocks, and people who had depression should be confined to a room and do nothing but stare at a blank wall. They literally thought that the nervous system was overtaxed and doing nothing was a cure. Now we know that isn't the case. And I didn't even mention the horrors Geraldo Rivera uncovered at Willowbrook, or the frontal lobotomies that were all too common. The reason I bring this all up is because I think I came across something much worse while doing some urban exploring at Goose Creek Sanitarium, a hospital in my hometown that had been abandoned long before I was born. In one of the filing cabinets was the medical journal of Dr. Hogg that had worked in the hospital during the 1920s. The name meant nothing to me at the time, but that didn't stop me from reading through it. The paper had suffered from water damage over the years and was half eaten by silverfish by the time I stumbled across it. However, from the pages I was able to piece together a very menacing story. Dr. Hogg was convinced that he could cure every mental ailment by performing questionable experiments on his patients. Most of the language he used was a bit over my head, but I understood that everything from mental afflictions, memory, personality, to perhaps even the soul was not physically in the brain, but instead only existed electrically. Because of this, Hogg thought that if he extracted these electrical impulses and shared them with others who were connected to the machine of his own device, he could cancel out some qualities. He was sure that as long as he could find polar mental opposites, his theory would work. The way it was described, it was though all these patients didn't know where they ended and the others began. And personally, I couldn't imagine a worse kind of torture. This went on for a full 10 days. He noted every twisted detail for posterity. In my opinion, I think the man was a sadist. On the 10th day, the patients stopped showing signs of their conditions and started to act like completely different people. More than that, they started acting like the same person. Not only would the patients finish each other's sentences, but they would also talk in unison. At first, the doctor thought these were residual effects and that over time they would all readjust to the cure. However, it wasn't long before the patients started to show signs of precognition and, in a few cases, pyromancy. The doctor's word, not mine. Seeing this in his patients, the doctor was convinced that the people he subjected to the machine he built were possessed by Legion, even going as far as quoting scripture and blaming himself for opening the door to damnation. Over the months, the doctor grew more terrified of his patients, and in order to cover up any wrongdoings, he brought a gun to work with the intention of killing those who he thought were possessed. That was the last entry of the doctor's journal. But I had to know what happened next. I searched the rest of the abandoned sanitarium for anything I could find, but there was nothing there. At least nothing I could read. Down in the basement, I found a monstrosity of brass and iron and copper, covered in rust. After cleaning it of rust and cobwebs, I tried posting it on Reddit, "What's that thing?" But the best answer I got was movie props for a horror movie featuring a mad scientist, though the user admitted that it was just a guess. During my quest to discover the truth behind this bizarre tale, I traveled to the library in town and went through the microfiche in the back. I was about to call it quits when I came across a headline from 1927. Inmates make daring escape. The rest of the article highlighted the fact that even though the patients lived in different cells and floors and had no way of communicating to each other, they worked in unison to escape. Then, most puzzling of all, they leapt from a fifth-story window and ran out into the woods, where they were never seen again. It sounds crazy, I know. However, as I read that headline, a flood of memories came over me, and for the first time in years, I remembered a story that my grandmother used to tell me before bed. The one about the neighboring woods, and how she would hear noises at night when she was a little girl. Coupling this with the fact that the town already thought that the woods were haunted by ghosts and monsters of all kinds, convinced me that there was something to my grandmother's story. The more research I did about Dr. Hogg, the more disturbed I became. Years after he was about to kill the patients, he became incarcerated at the very hospital he worked at. There, he tried convincing everyone that he had opened a door and summoned demons. The jury is still out on whether Hogg was insane or not. But that doesn't matter to me, as getting the machine in working order. I am sure as long as I can get it to work, that there would be someone willing to purchase it. Who knows? Maybe what he said is true, and it really opens a door and allows demons into our world. I hope it works. I've had enough of this world, and I want it to end. Perhaps I should test it on my landlord. No one would complain if he went missing.